create an EC2 server that doesn't meet that condition, this is where you get those kind of notification. And, obviously the team can reach out to whoever created that or the team in charge and say, hey, you have, you're not being compliant, okay? And these are the different accounts under this landing zone. So if we go to, so let's go to organization. All right. So basically, there's a root organization, and in there there are two organizational units. So, okay. So the business organizational unit that will hold account for dev, for pre-prod, for production, and things like that. So we have simulated an organization called Transcorp. So when creating this landing zone, Transcorp was just the name that was used, just to, say for example, you're working for a Transcorp organization, and then in there will be multiple accounts. So this is their dev account, okay? But automatically, Amazon will create another organizational unit, and in there will be an audit and log archive account that gets created. Okay, so the audit account is basically the account that hold audit information. Nothing gets deleted there. All the audit data gets shipped into that account, and if there is time to do an audit, that's the account you go into. And log archiving is, one of the things that is common about infrastructure is there's going to be a lot of logs. Every data means a lot, okay, from an infrastructure standpoint as well. So all the logs get archived somewhere. We don't ever want to delete anything, so that if we need to analyze things, anomalies or anything like that, that's where we go to. So these are automatically created by Amazon when setting up a landing zone. But the actual environment, different environments that we want, this is where we get to set them up. And if we need to create another account, for example, you can come here, create an account, okay? And then you can select which organizational unit that account is going to belong to, all right? So you can see here, the only one available here is the Transcorp, because the other one, you can't create any account in there. That is something that Amazon controls, okay? So basically, this is pretty much a broad overview of what it means to have a landing zone and have different environments that you can use within it. Let me see. Okay, so if you wanted to you can create a new organizational unit. Okay, so an organizational unit is basically the parent node where different accounts, AWS accounts, will live in. So those AWS accounts will be created not the same way that you would normally create an account where you go in, you sign up and all that. This one is created from an AWS account. It's like having nested accounts within an account, and they're connected together. So let me see if Fred has shared the link I was saying. Okay, he hasn't. Okay, maybe before the end of the class, he will share it, and then we can test it out. Okay, so let's assume we want to create an account for the first time. Okay, we want to create a landing zone for the first time. Okay, so here you select the home region. Okay, so you can choose a home region for your AWS control tower by selecting a region from the AWS region selector or the drop down below. This is the default region where resources in your shared account will be provisioned. Okay, so this basically represents, I mean, it's self-explanatory. So any further accounts that you create or resource you create would default to whatever home region that you select there. Okay, and here it's talking about you can deny access to AWS services and operations in any AWS region. So you can see how you can manage things from the top, right? So if you want to ensure that people just don't have access to certain regions, you can control all that from the top. Unlike, an account that you would create that you can just select here and switch to different accounts. From the parent account, you can control things like this. So don't be surprised when you start working on an organization and you realize that you can't switch region, you can't do certain things because that account is being governed by a parent account. Okay, so that's the whole concept around landing zone. You have, I like the name they use, landing zone. It's the zone whereby your entire organization is being managed, and you land in there, and then you manage every other thing. So let's say we click on next. So foundation OU, so that's the one that so it basically creates two organizational units, like I said. So the security one is where the log archive and auditing are created. Additional OU is that one that I said when, in the case of that other account, we have transcorp here. That's what it means. So whatever name you want to put, you can put the name there. You click on next, then this is where you create the account. So for each of the accounts that you create, you need to specify the email address. So let's say, for example, my email address is dari@dari.io. Yeah. So because you want to have different AWS unique, you want to have different unique email addresses, there's a nice feature where you can just put a plus here, and then you can do maybe log archive, something like that. And then the email is going to come to my dari@dari.io email account, but it will see this as a unique email, even though the message or the email eventually drops into the same account. But you can use this to create different accounts on the fly without creating new email accounts. Okay. And then for the audit as well, you can just pass that in there, and then you name these audits. Okay. All right. So this is for the audit. All right.
Sorry, please, can you go back a step to that foundation OU? I didn't get that.
Okay. This one, yeah. Okay. So what we're trying to say here is when you're creating a landing zone, two organizational units one gets created automatically for you. The additional one is the second one, which is your own. That's where you're going to put your different environments. So whether it's your dev or SIT or pre-prod or production or whatever, that's where all the different accounts is going to be. An organizational unit, think of it as the parent account for all the different accounts that you're going to be creating. Okay, so this foundation organizational unit, okay, is the OU for security. So the account that gets created in there is two: the log archive and the audit. Okay. And then this additional OU is where your different environments will be created. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Should we create this under an IAM user or a generic user?
So basically, when you're creating a landing zone like this, it has to be from a root account. Or actually, you can even you can even use an IAM user. I believe you should be able to use an IAM user, but that IAM user must be an administrative user. It must have administrative permissions to be able to do it. So you should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if we proceed, then you put the email for those foundation OU accounts. So these two that you've added is for the foundation OU account, which is the security. Yeah. And then if we move to the next, here is asking AWS access configuration. Self-managed AWS account access with IAM. And here identity. So you can leave this as default. This is what I wanted to show you because it's going to give you like a URL that you're going to use to sign into the different account. Okay. And CloudTrail is that's AWS service that you're able to use to track every API call in your account. So say, for example, someone deletes an EC2 instance that shouldn't be deleted, maybe in production. Every API call to AWS, whether it's coming from Terraform or it's done on the console, every button you click is an API call. So all the API calls get stored in CloudTrail, and there's an S3 bucket that gets created, which is like the object store that stores all that data. So if you go to CloudTrail, you can actually filter by date and see all the things that's happening. That's more like, auditing, yeah? So whether you want to enable that or not. And then log configuration. So this is S3 because it's going to use S3 for keeping the data. So retention, how many years do you want to keep the data? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on, if it's a banking or financial sector, for example, there are compliant, there are things you have to be compliant with. So in those sectors, maybe it's a central bank or whatnot, they actually set those policies that data must be kept for X number of years. So this is how you implement those kind of things. So if in your industry you have to keep data for 5 years, this is where you keep it. After 5 years, you can delete it. But so that's that. So KMS encryption, is optional. If you want to encrypt things in your services, your AWS CloudTrail, your what's it called, S3, whether you want it. But if you're going to use this option, then you have to ensure that you've created that KMS key ahead. Okay. So if you hit on next, this is where, let me see, so foundation, additional overview. Okay. So if it doesn't create those environments at this point, probably when it's done setting up the landing zone. I don't intend to set it up in this account. But once it's done, then you can go to the OU and create more. Let's assume let me close this red. So let's assume your Transcorp organization has been created, and now you want to create more accounts. Where is it? Let's go back. I think this is, okay, so you want to create a new AWS account. So this is where you now start specifying, and then it's going to be created under the OU. So this is where you get to say, okay, now I want to create dev account, production account, SIT account, whatever account you want to create. And that's it, really. So once everything is set up and running, then your respective teams can go into each of those accounts and start setting things up. So your dev environment, you can log into your dev, and then you can create your VPC there. You can, do all sort of things. Okay. All right, cool. So that's it about landing zone. So play around with these. It's fun. If you have any issues, let us know, and then we can move on to other things. Yes, the accounts are completely isolated. Even though they are managed by the organizational units, they are completely isolated. Okay, and that's the whole point here, so that if one gets compromised, right, your entire infrastructure is not compromised. So everything is indeed separated. All right, so let's go into the meat of today's class, which is implementing our tooling infrastructure. Okay. So first of all, Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. So I have this, and I'm going to share this with you guys. I just haven't kept it in a Git repo yet. But what I've done is there are nodes here. So, and I've numbered them in the order of things that we're going to be implementing. So we implement Elasticsearch, Kibana, we'll do Nginx for Kibana. I'll tell you the reason why we need to do that. FileBits. We'll implement Apache with FileBits, and get to go through all of these. And we'll do some load testing and see how metrics and all those things play. Okay, so what we will do, first of all, is in your own time, when you are doing this on your own, try to do it as though you're implementing an enterprise architecture. Remember, we were designing architecture and we're talking about internet gateway, NAT gateway, public subnet, private subnet, and all that. Okay, even though we're still going to do that in detail for our business applications, maybe in the next 2 weeks or so, where we'll come back again. For today's class, we're just going to put everything in one public subnet just for a quick implementation. But when you are practicing it ahead of time, try to think enterprise, okay? And try to implement it from an enterprise perspective. Put in load balancers here and there, you put them in auto-scaling group. And if we were to do all that today, it would take a lot of time, okay? So, but let's just quickly get to the end of certain things, and then we will come back to do it the way they should be done. All right. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to go on mute for just 2 seconds. Okay, I'll be back. Right. All right. I'm back. Sorry about that. I had to quickly take care of something. All right, cool. So where did we start? So let's go ahead and start creating infrastructure. So what we're going to do, let's go into VPC. And probably let's go into a different region. Maybe let's go to London. Okay. And by the way, all the commands I'm going to be running, I'll be sharing them in the chat. Probably I'll share them in Slack so you can copy them just in case if you want to follow along. And this class actually is the type that you can actually follow along. So if you have your, especially if you have multiple screens, if you have your laptop and you have another screen, it will be fun for you to actually go along, okay? So what we can do, I probably won't even create a new VPC. We'll use the default VPC. That should be fine. And let me see, we should have a public subnet, right? Let me see. Okay. Let's have a look at the routes table and see. Okay, so we have, okay, the default route table actually has an internet gateway. So I guess we're fine with any of the subnets, because if there is no, so there is no explicit association to the subnet. So what happens is this default route table gets used automatically. Okay, and this route table has a route configuration that uses the internet gateway. Okay, so that means all the subnets will be public. If that doesn't make sense to you, let me know. And it's just one of those things, those little things that you should know. Okay, so let's create our EC2 instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 4 EC2 instances. I'll just name them monitoring. I hope I spelled that correctly. And I'm going to use Ubuntu and Elasticsearch requires a beefy system. So what I will do is I will use T2 large should be fine. Okay, so that's 8 gig. Yeah, that should be fine. All right. So what I will do is I will create a new clip here. I'll just name this monitoring and I'll download that. Okay. All right. And then so we'll create a new security group. We'll update that afterwards. So what we'll do is we'll just make sure that everyone can access to it. All right. So let's just give this maybe 10 gig. Okay, that should be fine. All right. So same configuration everywhere. Okay, I've just muted that person. So please remember to go on mute. All right, so let's launch our instance. Please have a look for me. Have I missed anything? I'm just creating 4 instances and we'll name them accordingly shortly. So you know the purpose of each. Please ignore my doorbell. Okay, I think we're fine. So let's create them. And let's go to instances and this monitoring elk. So on this server, we're going to implement Elasticsearch and Kibana. We won't touch on Logstash today. It's just because of time, but there's no big deal about it. I'll show you exactly where Logstash comes in when we're doing stuff. The next one, we're going to put Prometheus and Grafana. Okay, and here we're going to have Apache, okay, a web server running there that will represent, one of our services. And here we're going to put Nginx. So that's another service, yeah? So we have all these 4 running. So let me search by monitoring so that we can filter and see only our services. So we have all these running. What I would also do is, let me bring up I'm going to bring up my terminal. Okay, this is my terminal right here. So I use iTerm on Mac. So if you have similar terminal that is able to create new tabs and like, for example, I can divide my screen like this. I can even divide it like that. And so that if I need to work on multiple terminals at the same time, I'm able to do this. I'm sure there are tools that can do this for you, especially if you're working on Windows. There's one, can't even remember the name, but there's quite a number of them. If you need help with that, let us know and we can always help out with that. Okay, the reason I need this is so that I can create multiple tabs. So this is, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to label them. So let me label this. I can give it a color. I'll give this, I don't know what color that is, but I can name it elk. So I know elk is running here. I can see it's been named elk. Okay, so this will help us identify our terminal. This one, let me give this one blue, and this will be for Prometheus Grafana. Okay, click to set, and I'll probably create one more. So new tab, and then I can give this green. and this will be for, let's say, web servers, okay? Web server or proxy, whatever we want it to do, we'll figure that out as we go along. Okay, so say for example, if we're working on this web server or proxy, we can have Nginx at the top and maybe Apache at the bottom, and then we can see things going on. But we'll figure out as we go along. If my screen is too small, let me know so that I can let you know. All right, so what I would do is, let me see where I am. Okay, let me just create a new folder, observability. That's what we're going to be doing today. Observability, let me move into there. And then I want to, because I downloaded that PEM key, so I'm going to move that from, it must have gone into my desktop. And I think I named it monitoring. Oh, no, that's monitor. Oh, no, that's desktop. Must have been in downloads. Downloads. And then monitoring. Yep. So I want to move that here. I want to make sure that I have changed the permission. Actually, I need 0600. I believe this is not new to you guys. That's why this is an advanced class. So certain things I'm not going to be explaining to say permissions on Linux. I just want to believe that you've done all of that during your foundation class. Okay, so, and that's the fun of this advanced class, because we can really move quickly and do things like, you know, professional people. All right, so we have that. So let me get, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this somehow. Have that like this so that we can switch between things. Let me clear the screen. So first thing is, let's implement our Elasticsearch. That's the first one here. So let's get the public IP and let's see if we can SSH into it. Okay, so SSH dash I monitoring, and then what's it called? All right, Ubuntu at the IP address. Okay, so we're able to get it. And by the way, we need to change the security group so that's not just, because at the moment, I'm sure it's only SSH that can get in, and we need, as you can see, SSH anyway. So we're going to need a lot of ports open and, you know, different things. So I'll just open this to every traffic from anywhere, okay? And save that. Okay, so that we don't get fall into issues. All right, so we have that. Then, where are we? Okay, so we're able to get into Elasticsearch. So what we will do is, let's minimize that and get our, let's go into Elasticsearch. So I'm going to paste this in our Slack channel. All right, so you can have all of that. All right, so this is for Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch. Okay, cool. Let's get started. So first thing, we're going to update the repository on our server. We want to check if we have Java installed, and we're going to need Java because Elasticsearch is a Java application. It was developed with Java, so it needs Java to be installed for it to run. Okay, so we'll install the Java runtime environments and the JDK, and then we will add the GPG key for Elastic, and we'll put the Elastic repository so that when we update again, we're able to just do apt install Elasticsearch. Now, all these are documented in the Elastic official documentation. And when you start working with Elasticsearch, you are going to, you know, spend a lot of time on the official website. Okay. So 1 second. Wait 1 second. It's my kids trying to open the door. All right. So if we go to their docs, there's a whole lot of things around. There's a lot of things going on here. Okay, so but just to let you know, there is an official documentation to get a lot of things done. So I've just made the journey fairly easy for you by extracting the commands that we need today. So on your own, if you need more things, this is basically where you're going to go to. So let's carry on. So we've logged on to Elasticsearch, and let's install. Let's start our installation. So first thing, we're going to update, and let me see if I can increase the font a little bit more. Okay, that's good. Let's see if I can drag that. Okay. All right, so that's let's check if there is Java installed. There's no Java installed. So what we will do is we will install JRE, and we can run the javac command to check the version that's been installed. If you have any question along the line, feel free to stop me. And as I've shared these, you can go ahead and start implementing it. Okay. All right. So this javac isn't installed. So that's what we need this for. Okay. But let me see, Java version. Okay, so the Java JDK has been installed, but the javac, we need that as well. So that's why we're going to install this JDK. All right, so okay, cool. So that's also there. So what I'll do is I'm just going to run all of these in one go to save us some time. And then we will then install Elasticsearch. Okay, so we're installing Elasticsearch. Now this is where things get interesting. So one thing you will notice is when you're installing tools, there will be some configuration file that you can use to configure the system as you want, right? So for Elasticsearch, in the etc folder, there is an Elasticsearch folder as well. Okay, let's check that out. It requires permission, so I need to use sudo. So in there, you see all sorts of files. So this particular file is the specific configuration file for Elasticsearch. This key store is where Elasticsearch keeps the private key and the public key for Java to operate, because this is a database application. It's a document database. It is highly scalable because it uses distributed computing technology. And what that means is you can scale it. You can keep on adding more and more nodes. It's not one of those services where if you install it and it gets filled up or it uses a lot of RAM or CPU, it can't scale beyond that particular server. This system is so powerful that if we deploy 3 Elasticsearch nodes, it's very scalable that you can even, add more and more and more. Okay, but the way it works, it has the master components, where you have the 3 master Elasticsearch nodes, and then it has nodes that you can add on to it. Now, the specific detail of the architecture, you can go and do a bit more research on it, read more on it, and try to understand how the system works. But from a DevOps perspective, you need to know enough to be able to set up the system, optimize it, When there are performance issues, you know where to look into, things like that. So there are specific engineers who are developers who work with Elasticsearch, there are Java developers, so you don't have to care too much about that. All right. What we want to do for the sake of today's training is to configure Elasticsearch to listen on any address, because by default, it listens only on its own node. So what that means is no one can communicate with it unless you are on the server, pretty much. So if we open up this configuration file, and if we search for network, okay, by the way, if you don't know how I'm searching, I've opened it up with Vim, and if I look towards the down here, if I type / and I type network, you can see it basically just takes me to anywhere there's the keyword network. And if I hit enter, it takes me to where it is. And if I hit on N on my keyboard, it takes me to the next one. So this is the next one. Okay. And what I want to do is to uncomment this and then put in the 0.0.0.0. Okay. So the reason I want to do this is so that we can connect to these from another computer. Okay, there are other configurations, for example, the discovery.seed host and the cluster initial master node. So you can actually configure multiple nodes as the master. So let me search again. So I'm going to hit on escape on my keyboard so that we can move away from the insert mode. And then I want to search for discovery. So / hit discovery. You can see it takes me to where this discovery section is. And you can see here it says pass an initial list of hosts to perform discovery when this node is started. Okay, so when this node is started, if you put in the list of hosts here, these are the hosts that it's going to initially discover. So as you can see here, it's in a list. Okay, a list is a square bracket like that, which means you can put multiple elements in there separated by comma. So in our own case, we are just configuring one node for Elasticsearch. When you're practicing this, you can actually spin up multiple hosts and try to pull the IP addresses. So what I will do is I will get the IP address for Elasticsearch. I can get the public IP. And then I can just put that in there and close that. Okay, so the next thing is this cluster.initial master node. So I'll do the same thing. Okay, so node 1, node 2. So if you had more nodes, that's where you put it as well. So same thing, put that. Okay, and by the way, if we had DNS configured and we have a records, you can actually put the name of the host there, and our DNS within our infrastructure can resolve it into the actual IP address. So if the name of this host is, let's say, elasticsearch.diary.io, something like that, and you've configured that in DNS, and you know your infrastructure is able to connect to the DNS server, you've configured your resolve.com file on the server to connect to your DNS server, you can actually put the DNS name, or you can configure DNS on the host computer using the etc/host file. Okay, so for those who have done different projects in the past, you know what I'm talking about. Just for context, for the sake of those who may not know, if you open up this file, etc/host file, sudo. So this is where you do that sort of configuration. So in this file, you can just put the IP address, and then in front of it, whatever name you want this server to be called, maybe node 1 or elastic.node.master.diary.i, whatever it is. This file will serve as your DNS on this host, so that if you're trying to within your infrastructure, if you have other nodes that are configured like that, and you try to talk to them, whether SSH or ping or curl or whatever, and you're specifying that node name, it will look up the IP address from this file. Basically, you can try that if you haven't tried it in the past, and then it will work. It will just resolve it to the IP address, something like IP address and then the name in front of it, and that should work just fine. But in our own case, we're not doing any of that. We just put our IP address directly, and we should be fine. Okay. All right. So once we have that, we can then start Elasticsearch. Okay. So let's see if Elasticsearch is going to start. And we can enable and get the status as well. So it's taking a bit of time. Let's just wait for it. Is anyone implementing this as we're going along? Let me know if there's anyone that is actually doing this, or you're just watching.
For me, I've actually done this already before the class. I've tried it out.
That's good. That's very good. That's what I like to hear. So at least this is like a refresher for you. And if you have questions, it will be an opportunity for you to ask questions based on things that you've discovered during the time you were doing it. All right, cool. So we've started it. Let's see if it's running fine.
I've also attempted it before the class too.
Okay, so Elasticsearch is loaded. You've also implemented before the class. Well done. That's really good. Okay, so we have Elasticsearch started and it's running on this one. So if we do, let's see if we can actually see it. Elasticsearch listens on ports 9200. So if we put in our browser and do 9200, let's see. Oh, good. So we've been able to hit it, and you guys can actually try it. So if I put in the chat the address, you can check it out yourself. Okay. So for search, for sure, for search. I like that. All right, cool. So Elasticsearch is out of the way, and the thing is, this is basically, I think it has a UI. I can't remember the apart from Kibana, it also has a UI, not a great UI, but you hardly ever get to use that. Can't remember how to get to that, but I've seen it before. All right, quickly, to save us some time, let's quickly implement Kibana. And it's basically the same thing. So if Kibana was running on a different system, because it's possible for you to install Kibana on another server, but just to save our infrastructure cost, we'll just install everything on this same server, right? But ideally, in the real world, you will separate them. You're not going to run Kibana and Elasticsearch on the same server. You run them separately, okay? So if that was to be the case, the same thing we did before, install Java, install all of that, and then you can just go ahead and install it. So we've done all of these on this same server. What we're just going to do is to install Kibana. Okay. So while that is trying to install, let's quickly go through this. Okay. So Kibana itself runs, again, similar to Elasticsearch. It listens only on its host, okay? And because we're going to need to go to our browser to access Kibana, we need to configure some proxy to be able to access it, okay? So, for example, let's say curl localhost 560. It listens on port 5601. Okay, it says Kibana server is not ready yet, so it's still loading and trying to do stuff. And then on here, let's see, 560. Okay, so while that is loading, so what we want to do is we want to implement Nginx. So basically, we're going to install Nginx, and then so that we don't have to put in, colon 5601 and all that. It would basically go ahead and load up Kibana for us as if it's a website. Because within our infrastructure, we're not going to share Kibana link and say, oh, make sure that you put port 5601. We want to be able to ensure that when we give you the link, kibana.direct or whatever, you just put it in the browser and it loads up. And by the way, Kibana itself listens on local host, so it won't allow anything from anywhere else to connect to it other than localhost. So the way around that is to implement a proxy. Okay, so this is an Nginx proxy configuration that says when we listen on port 80, and by the way, this is an opportunity again for you to implement enterprise grade solution where you implement HTTPS to listen on port 443. Okay, so if we put in this on our browser, so I'm going to change the IP address to the one that we're using now. So if we put the IP address on our browser, it basically proxy passes it to local hosts. Okay, so again, let's check whether Kibana is ready. It keeps saying it's not ready yet. Anyway, so let's update this IP address. Okay, what I would do, just in case there's multiple places, I'll just search. That was Control F, by the way, and then I can just replace. There's 2 places, and I want to remove all that extra noise. Okay, cool. So what we will do, we'll skip this for now. This is implementing authentication so that when we go to the browser, we can put in username and password. We'll come back to that later. So what we'll do, first of all, let's install Nginx on our server. And then we will configure our proxy. Okay. And then we will put this configuration. And by the way, actually, okay, I will just comment it out. Otherwise, it's going to prompt for username and password, and we haven't actually implemented that. So what I will do here is comment this part out for now. Okay. So we know what's going on. We put this in our browser. It just passes it to localhost. All right. And then we will just create a symbolic link from site available to site enabled. You've done this several times, so I believe this is not new to you. So this is site available. Okay, so we've configured it in site available, but it doesn't mean it's enabled. So to enable it, we now need to put Kibana in the site enabled folder by creating a symbolic link. So at the moment, there's only defaults, because if we go to the server right now, where is it? If you go here right now, and I put here, you can see this is Nginx, and this is the default server that configuration that has been implemented by virtue of installing Nginx. So to now enable our Kibana site, we just create a symbolic link. So if you don't know what a symbolic link, go back to your Linux lessons. If you're watching this video again, make sure you quickly do, a quick learn on what a symbolic link is. It can come out in interview questions, especially when they start asking you for Linux questions. Okay, so there's soft link, there's hard links. Know the differences between the two. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a symbolic link. And by the way, this is a symbolic link. Basically, this default here that we've listed this folder, this default right here, it looks like it's a file here, but it's actually not a file. It's just a link to the actual file. And that's why, if you look at this L here, signifies that it's a link. This signifies directory. This is link. This is directory, So what we're going to do is we're going to create a link that's going to be called Kibana to the actual file that we created earlier on, which is this one. So that anytime we go to this folder and look for the file, it points to that. And that's what Nginx is going to do. Nginx is going to be looking into this site enabled folder. It doesn't care about this site available. Okay, this site available basically means, oh, we're going to configure this site to become available, but when we're ready, we'll just enable it. Okay, so to enable it now, we just create a link between site enabled to site available. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, so now if we list our site enable, you can see now we have Kibana linked to this. So even though we haven't actually created a file in site enable, if we try to list it, if we try to cut it and open it up, you see that we're able to see the same content which was created in our site's available folder. Okay, hope that makes sense. All right, so now that we have that, we can check with our sudo nginx -t command to see if our configuration is good. If anything was wrong here, it would have reported here an error to say syntax is not good and it's failed or something like that. And now we can reload nginx. Okay, basically reloading the configuration, and then we can go to our browser and just refresh here. Okay, so it keeps saying Kibana is not ready. So what we'll do is let's try to figure out what the problem is with Kibana. So system ctl status Kibana. Okay, it's running. We can look at the logs by running journal ctl -u, which is the service Kibana -f, which is to tell the logs. Kibana service failed with exit code. Okay, this was earlier on. It says Kibana started. I expect it to have started by now. Let's see whether we're struggling with resources. It's used up 4 gig, we still have enough. Okay, let's see if we have CPU seem to be fine as well. All right, so let's probably just restart system ctl restart Kibana. Maybe that will help. Oops, sudo. Actually, did we configure? Okay, we didn't have to do any configuration file for Kibana. Okay. Okay, because it's restarting. So this is Nginx reporting 502.
Can you kindly share your commands like you shared on Slack before?
Okay, yes, for Kibana, right?
And Nginx as well. Nginx.
Okay, will do. So this is Kibana. And this is internet. Okay, button. I wonder why it's taking time. Okay, let's quickly have a look at this, the monitoring side here to see. CPU utilization has spiked up. And I'm wondering if that could be in the last 1 minute, in the last 1 hour. 15 minutes. 17:45. So 17:45. It's UTC time, which means it is 1 hour ahead, I think. All right, so UTC time. 18:25. Okay, let me see, what instance type is this? Because I'd actually tried this with this is CICD T2 large. Okay, that's why. Should have used T2X large. Okay, you know what? Let's quickly recreate this. It won't take long. So what I'm going to do is we'll only do that for Elasticsearch, because that's the only one that requires a lot of resources. The image, create more like this, just one, but then we will give it more resources. Okay, let's just select, make sure we select our key, and then it's going to use our existing security group, so we should be fine. And this is our Elasticsearch upgraded. By the way, we could actually upgrade the same one by changing the instance type. We just don't want to go through that. We can just quickly configure this one. So let's get this. All right, so what I'm going to do is, oops, I didn't intend to restart. Just wanted to get the status for this. It's still not right there. So let's just exit and then log into this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly reconfigure things. So I can just copy everything like that. Okay, you know what?
Sorry, what instance type are we using now? Sorry.
We're using T2X large. So I had to go for T2X large. So that has 16 gig of RAM. So I think the problem is because we're running both Elasticsearch and Kibana on the same server that has 8 gig, and you know, they're both going to struggle.
Yes, sir. Question, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Is there a way we can vertically scale the instance without having to create another one there from? Maybe we'll stop and then change the instance type.
Yes, you can.
then
That's what I
restart.
said earlier. So yes, we can. We can actually change the instance type. I just didn't want to go through that, but yes, it wasn't possible before, but now it is possible with AWS. If we go through the, let me see, instance settings, change instance type, you can do that. So you just have to shut it down and then just change it, and it will just come up with a new one. Well, not a new one. It will basically reprovision your instance. Your data, everything will still remain, and that sort of works. It wasn't available before. I think they introduced it maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago or so. But yeah, it's possible. Okay. All right, so let's configure this part again. Oh, this is painful. All right, so network. And then the other discovery, let's get our IP address. Wait a minute, where am I connected to? I hope I'm connected to the new one. 134131. Okay, I'm connected to the one. Let me just stop this one so we don't mistakenly go back there. Three, four, one, three, yeah. Okay, so it's the back. Discovery. All right. So I have that. And then let's just so we can have a look at the monitoring here. CPU. So there's no data at the moment, but because it's a new instance, as we heard on, you can keep an eye on the monitoring side of things. So Razak, you asked this question the other time. So this is you getting started with monitoring, because even though you have a view of your monitoring here, you can actually view in CloudWatch by clicking on, you can click on this view metrics, and you can go into CloudWatch and you're able to actually see things in a much more better view. Okay. And that is you know, you can filter by the last 1 hour, last 3 hours, you know, you can put custom timing to say how many minutes ago, or absolute to select date range. And, you know, you get to do things like this when you're troubleshooting, something happened, maybe customers are reporting an error, you want to track when it actually started. Okay, say for example, it started 6 a.m. this morning. Okay, customers are complaining, you know, just like maybe they're not able to access Kibana, right? And it was working before. You can come in here and begin to track and see. And if you notice that maybe at 6 a.m. it started, and what you notice is there's a spike in CPU at that point, like we saw the other time that the spike went up, then you can start asking questions. Did anything happen? Did someone install something new on the server or run a new process, or, you know, anything could have happened. So you want to dig in to know what has happened during that time frame that things started. You can look at logs, and by the time we have Kibana up and running and Elasticsearch, you will also get to see how you can see things from a broader perspective, because sometimes it may not be on that server that the problem actually started happening. It could be from other system, and you can connect the dots. It takes a bit of, you know, common sense as well, a mind of an investigative mind, basically. You want to investigate, you want to dig into things, and you have data at your disposal. So you'll be able to, go deeper. And by the way, I've noticed in my career working with different people, the few women that I've worked with who are DevOps engineers, they're actually good at this side of DevOps. Women generally, they like to put their eyes into things.
FBIs.
FBI, exactly. So they kind of they shine a lot in this area. They sort of go into the, especially for those who know what they're doing. They have information about how logging and observability works. Before anybody else, they've come up and say, "Oh, I figured out what happened. It was this, and that." And that's because they've actually gone in and investigated things. So that's an interesting part of DevOps. When you hear things like site reliability engineer, these are the kind of things they do. Okay. All right. So let's have a look at. All right. So Elasticsearch is up and running. So let's go back to Kibana and let's see if it's gonna come up. Okay. So we've done all of that on the same server. Remember. So let's do that. Okay. So let's refresh. Okay. So you can see our data point has started. Okay, so we're beginning to see data. It started at this point. So we're using 9% CPU here. Okay, so what do we have? We started. If we do localhost 5601. Okay, says it's not ready yet. Let's hope that this time around it's not because of resource contention. And let's also install Nginx. And our symbolic link. Okay, that's because I didn't disable that what's called the authentication. This how it will prompt for username and password. So let's go back and I didn't comment this out. Let's reload and refresh. So it looks like Kibana is still not ready.
So we installed Nginx on the same server where we installed Kibana.
Yes. We don't really have to make any changes to this Kibana configuration file. So you can just leave everything the way it is. Just trying to see if there's anything. So these, they're commented out because whatever value here is default. This is only if you wanted to change. Say, for example, Elasticsearch is running on a different server. You can then uncomment this and put the location of Elasticsearch. But this is the default configuration saying Elasticsearch is running on this host on 9200 again. So okay, I think we need to do a bit more research here to know why it's saying Kibana is not ready. I didn't face this when I was configuring at first. I wonder why it's expecting us to delete indexes. But let's say it says I found the same issue this version. Let's try that. Right, okay. So it looks like the problem is related to the Elasticsearch configuration we had earlier on. Let's see. So here, okay. Try something. I want to try the private address.
Sorry. I was not even a call. I'm 30 minutes late.
restart Elasticsearch. Okay, Banjo is saying because they're not the same version. Okay, we'll have a look. So, okay, so let's check this status. Okay, let's select host 5601. Okay. All right, let's see. I think this is it, yeah. Okay, I think what it needed was for Elasticsearch to be restarted. So basically this is the Kibana status page. But, if we go to the homepage, this is our Elastic our Kibana homepage. So we don't have any data at the moment, so you can add integration explorer and all that. So we won't do anything. We're just going to have data start flowing through for us. Okay. All right. So if you face this issue, let me just update that note. Actually, I think what's missing is the fact that we need to ensure to restart Elasticsearch before and after installing Kibana. Okay, so this is something to bear in mind. Otherwise, you may face this problem. All right. 1 second. Let me just also update the. Where is it? The Kibana on slide. All right, I've updated that. All right, cool. So let's go on. So we've installed Kibana, Nginx Kibana. So what I also like to do is to install Nginx on another server. The reason for that is to simulate a service that is failing. So what we'll try to do is, you know that Kibana listens on local hosts, right? So it won't allow anything else to connect to it. And that's the reason why we had to configure a proxy server, Nginx, on top of the same server so that it can proxy to local hosts, because it's only going to listen on local hosts. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll create another Nginx server, and then we will make it try to talk to Kibana by specifying the Kibana IP address. Does that make sense? We know that's not going to work because we'll see the logs and we'll see that it's trying to connect to Kibana and it won't be able to connect to it. So we're just going to simulate that so that all that kind of logs will be sent to our Elasticsearch when we start seeing the data. Okay. Let me see. Okay, I think we should. I didn't write any particular note on that because it's pretty much the same thing. So we're just going to go to that instance that we created for Nginx specifically. So we just go to our web server tab and we will SSH Okay, we need to go into observability, SSH, monitoring, and then go into this. Okay, so the one at the top is Nginx. So what we'll do is we'll put one below, and this is going to be our Apache. So let me log into Apache as well. So in case I forget, guys, please remind me that Nginx is at the top, Apache is below. Yeah. All right. So CD observability, SSH, into Apache server. All right, cool, brilliant. So we're in. So Nginx first. So what we'll do is we'll install Nginx. Okay. And we'll configure. Okay, so let's quickly, while we're doing that, sudo update -i. So let's do that for sudo updates. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Let's configure this. Put that in there. And then we'll point it to the address of our elk instance. Yeah. So instead of to find Kibana on its local, obviously Kibana is not even installed on this server because this is our Nginx server. So this is going to point to where Kibana is installed. Okay. And then this server Nginx, its own IP address, we need to ensure that we put it here, because this is the one that it's listed on. That's why it has this server name directive. Yeah. So once we hit this on the browser, let's remove authentication configuration. Okay. Where is it? There we go. Okay. And then we're good. Yeah. All right, cool. So the next thing is just to do all these things. So let's just, all right, so we're good. Okay. So we go to, where is it? So we go to our Nginx on the browser. Let's close all these things so we don't confuse ourselves. What's this? This is our Kibana. We can leave that. Close this out. Documentation. CloudWatch. What's CloudWatch saying? Okay, so you can see how things are going. So CPU came down, went back up again. So that's good. So on our Nginx, you can see there's 502 gateway. And if we go to our Nginx logs, so if I do sudo tail -f var log Nginx, okay, and then let me double tab. Okay, you can see. Okay, I just wanted you to see. Okay, double tab will show that there is access.log and error.log. So these are two files that Nginx logs. So if there are any errors, it goes into the error.log. If there is anyone who accesses this website, every access gets logged into the access.log file. So to show both on the same terminal, what I would do is just do start.log, and that way it's going to show me access.log and error.log. You can see in the error log file, you can see it says while connecting to upstream, the client, what is it saying? Unknown error. So it's failing. Okay, so we know why it's failing. On the other hand, if we do the same thing on our, we do the same thing on this server, you know, we have Nginx installed here as well. You can see Okay, so now this is reporting. One second, let me see if this is coming as a result of this. 1 second, hold on. So if I refresh this, okay. Was it a while connecting to option? Who is this? Excuse me, 14553. This is it's for it. Okay, so who is 14553? Is that 14553? Not that. I'm just curious to know where this is coming from. Oh, client. This is client. Server is 226.103. Who's that? Okay, this was when we went to status. Okay. All right, anyway, let's see. Let me just refresh this for a bit. Let's see what gets logged. Okay, so all this gets logged. Everything is fine here. For some reason, this was reported. Well, I can't explain really why this came up. Maybe there was an initial error. Maybe the first time we tried to access it, it couldn't access Elasticsearch. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is working fine. But this one, definitely, the reason why this is showing up is because it can't connect to Kibana. I hope you're following along. I don't want you to get confused. Okay, so as long as you understand the trend of thought, what we're trying to do. All right, so the next thing we want to do, let's go back to our notes. Okay, so we've implemented the good and the bad one. So what we now want to do is we want to start shipping logs to Elasticsearch. So this is where you begin to see the power of the whole elk stack. Now, don't forget, Logstash is a filtering side. So you can get log data to go from your server, okay, straight into Elasticsearch. But if you don't want to ship everything, you want to filter out the kind of data you want to send over, you can put Logstash in between. So data doesn't flow directly to Elasticsearch. It goes to Logstash, and then you can configure Logstash to not send everything, just filter what you want, and then the remaining goes through. In our own case, we're just going to send everything. So FileBeat is a lightweight component, part of the Elastic stack that is used to ship log files. So you can ship all sort of data to it, metric data, heartbeat. There's another beat called metric beat. There's audit beat. There's file beat. So file beat is the one we're about to work with, which it works with files on the server. Yeah. The metric beat works with metric data, so like CPU, system metrics, RAM usage, all those kind of data. So Elastic Stack is able to do both logging and monitoring. So the same thing Prometheus and Grafana does, Elastic Stack can actually do everything. So you don't necessarily need to have Prometheus and Grafana if you already have Elastic, because it does everything. But Elastic is very expensive. Enterprise organizations that use it, they pay a lot of license fees to use this technology. All right, so okay, so while we what we want to do now is to implement FileBeat. Okay, so let's start on the server that is configured to ship back data. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do on that server, it doesn't have all these Elastic. This is the same way we install Elasticsearch and Kibana, because it's all coming from the same company. Okay. So once we have that, we can just say sudo apt install FileBeat. Right. I think I can just copy the whole thing and run it at once. So this is where we need to get this done. So I can do the same thing here. To save time, I'll do it also on our Apache server. So we're going to install Apache here, so we get to see how Apache also ships its own logs there. All right. Okay. So here I've written something. Okay, by the way, let me quickly send this as well. File bit. So here I've said, let me quickly accept this. Proceed. So Elasticstack uses several lightweight data shippers called bits to collect data from various sources and transport them to Logstash or Elasticstack. So here are the bits that are currently available from Elasticstack. So there's file bit, metric bit, packet bit, winlog bit, audit bit, heartbit. So I've written some things about each of them in that document that we're using. Okay, so remember to read them. Okay, so in this particular tutorial, we're just going to focus on file bit. So once we have file bit installed, it's again, same concept in etc file bit, there's a file called filebit.yaml. So that's where we get to configure file bits, okay? So in this file, the only thing we want to configure here is our Elasticsearch address. Okay, so you go to the output section. Okay, go all the way down. So you can see Elasticsearch is configured to listen on localhost, but in our case, it's going to a different address. So we can just put in our Elasticsearch address. Where is it? Let's find it. So this is where Elasticsearch is running. So we can just replace that. Okay. All right. So, and that's the only thing. So if we were to use Logstash, you see, this is where we configure Logstash. So wherever we install Logstash, we just put the address there. And rather than send it straight to Elasticsearch, it just goes through Logstash. And then we can go into Logstash relevant configuration file to tell it what it needs to filter, what it needs to remain. Okay. So we're good with this. It's going on this address and 900. So remember that part of the configuration for Elasticsearch where we had to open up everything. This is one of the reasons so that we can have things connect to it from outside. If we didn't want that, what we will do is similar to what we've done with Elasticsearch, with Kibana rather, we can put a proxy, okay, so that it goes through the proxy to talk to Elasticsearch. So you can see where use cases for proxies are coming in. All right, so we can save this. Okay, let's go back to our notes for file bit. So we've configured our Elasticsearch outputs, and then we can restart and enable file bit. Okay. All right, so let's quickly do the same thing for what's it called? Apache. We haven't installed Apache yet, so we'll do that shortly. Actually, let me just search for outputs. N for next. N again, N. Okay, so it's gotten to that part, and then I could just put it here. All right. Okay, so where is it? The address is what we need. Okay, so where Elasticsearch is running. Okay, so we put it here. So if you ever get into an interview talking about Elasticsearch, you can hear things like, okay, what port is Elasticsearch running? What port is Kibana running? You know, these things. There's no way it won't stick to you if you work with these technologies. You know, so if you claim to have experience and you can't answer those basic questions, it's an instant no. All right, let's just quickly install Apache. This is just to save time. just quickly going to install Apache. Okay, so that's going on. All right, and go back to the file bit. So what have we done? So we've configured file bit. The next thing we want to do is, okay, let's quickly read this part. It says the functionality of file bit can be extended with file bit modules. Okay, in this tutorial, we will use the system module, which collects and parse logs created by the system login service of common Linux distribution. So basically, there is on every Linux service, if I go into ls var log, there's something called syslog. Okay, in this file, if I tail it, okay, you can see everything going on this server is being logged into this file. You can see we've just installed file bits, you know, different things that's happening on this server is basically just logging it into syslog. So now there is modules that makes file bits aware of different files, okay, different default files. So if I list in this folder, there's a folder called etc file bit modules.d, okay. See, there is different files, and by default, they're all disabled. Okay, so for different, so if you installed Zookeeper, Traffic, Tomcat, System, well, System is like for this system, yeah. Wherever, but let's open this so you see what I'm talking about. So this file, and if I add this file, you can see this module will go into syslog and it will start scraping the syslog data and ship it to Elasticsearch. So you'll start getting the benefit of Elasticsearch or Elastic Stack now. All the logs. Imagine if you're managing like hundreds of servers and you need to investigate things. You can't be going into each of the servers, but you can go into Kibana and filter by the IP address of the server and just get all your data in front of you. Okay, so if you enable the system module, it's just going to start shipping syslog data or authentication log data. I mean, where is authentication log on this system? If you go into var log, let me see, I think it's in auth. Yeah. So in this auth, anything that has to do with authentication, see, SSH, see this home Ubuntu user is running some commands. If you look up, you see where I SSH into the server. So anything that has to do with authentication, it basically just logs it. So in this system module, if you enable it, it basically ships all your syslog, authentication log data, everything into Elasticsearch. So what we're going to do is, and by the way, there is module for Nginx. So if I grep for Nginx, you can see there's module for Nginx. If I grep for Apache, there's a module for Apache. So basically, it understands where the log files for these different services are. If you enable it, it will start shipping the logs without saying, "Oh, this is what log file you need to ship." So with this, you get to understand how file bits know what log files to ship. Okay, so what we will do is what I like to do is just to move these files. So it's currently disabled. It's just going to copy it from system is it .disabled to not .enabled, but basically just removing the disabled part. Okay, and then in fact, maybe what I can do is just switch things around. Okay, so move that and then enable. So we've moved that and then enable. Okay, it says already enabled because we moved it. So if we did move it like this, if we run this command, it's basically going to do the same thing. Okay. So now if we go here for engine, for Nginx, you can see it is now sort of enabled. Yeah. Okay. So if we then, where is it? Okay, I think this is a repetition, so I'll just remove that. And now we can restart FileBit. Okay. It's restarted, and you can look at the logs for FileBit. So journal CTL-U FileBit, okay, -F. You can see what's going on in the logs. So it says it has loaded. Wait, what? Let's have a look. So existing template. Hang on a minute. Let's see, connection. Okay, so it's able to establish connectivity to Elasticsearch. Okay, and now it started shipping log data. So it's picked up data from our syslog, and then it'll start shipping. Very soon we'll start shipping, Nginx logs as well. So what we can do, because of time, is we are going to simulate sending data. So to do that, we can install. Wait a minute, where is it? So let's install util. Okay, I think this tool, if we install this utils, okay, there is a script that I have added. If I go into maybe, let's see if I can find it. Okay, this is it. So let me just, this is like a performance tuning load testing tool. So we can just create this script. So vi load, let's give it whatever name, load.sh. And then what this is going to do is it will run this AB tool and just like 1,000 connections, number of users or whatnot. I mean, what it's basically doing is running curl against localhost, and it will simulate different scenarios of connectivities. Now, this resource doesn't exist, none is a result. It's just to simulate 504 error, 404 error, all those kind of things. It's running in a while loop. So this will continue running until we stop it. So it will continue generating data. So if I chmod plus x loader sh, and then I'm going to run this script. So this will start simulating load. So if we go into, let's see if we start seeing data come through to Elasticsearch. Okay. All right. So just let's click on explore my own. Okay. And then if we hit here and go to discover, it says you have data in Elasticsearch, now create an index pattern. So basically, Elasticsearch has started receiving data, but we need to create what is called an index pattern. So think of an index as a database in Elasticsearch, or a table, if you're familiar with databases, where data is stored. Okay. So at the moment, data is coming from FileBit. So FileBit is the one sending the data. So FileBit will create like a table called FileBit dash the version of FileBit. Okay. And then it will put maybe Nginx or Apache or wherever the data is coming from. So if we create an index pattern, so let's create an index pattern. Okay, you can see this is what FileBit has created. So FileBit, this is the version of FileBit 7.17.12. And it's also created another, okay, actually this is our index, okay, with timestamp, where it's created an alias to say, just this without a timestamp, it's going to point to this, yeah? But FileBit will continue creating different indexes, because if this index gets big, it will create another index. Now there's some internal details to how Elasticsearch stores data. There's something called shard. So it stores them in shards, which is the component that makes it very horizontally scalable. So the data that gets stored is not stored on one node. If you have many Elasticsearch nodes, the data is spread across these nodes. Okay, so let's say, for example, 1 to 10. Okay, so let's say 1 is data, 2, 3, all the way to 10. I have 3 nodes. Now it can store 2 on node 1, store 3 on node 2, store 5 on node 3. So when it's time to retrieve the data, it goes to all the nodes and then it consolidates all the data together and then presents to you in Kibana. So that's how it stores. So it doesn't store the data in one node. So to make it horizontally scalable, it works with shards, and that's how you can read more on these and do a bit more research into sharding and things like that. But basically, it creates this it creates this indices, English. Okay, but you have to create a pattern. So the pattern we want to create here is file beats, okay, dash star. Okay. Or excuse me 1 second. Okay, sorry. Today is my daughter's birthday, so everyone is having a party outside. So try to get in here. All right, let's carry on. So we create this index pattern, which basically says anything that starts with file bit dash star, whatever. So because it's going to create more and more and more indices, right? Okay. So we have to select a timestamp field. So that timestamp, and if we create this index pattern, what it does is every file bit related data is now going to be presented to us in this index pattern. So we go to discover. Now you can begin to see data flowing through. Okay, so cancel that. Okay, so this is like, you can just expand this and you can see, you can explore this. Now, this is getting data from all over the place. Okay, agent name. Now, this is 43-72. Okay, so which server is this? 43-72. Actually, let's go to so 43-72. I think that's our Nginx. No, that's maybe. Okay, let's say maybe it's hang on a minute, let's see. Let's 43-76 rather. Okay, let's check again. 43-76. 43. Okay, so this is coming from Nginx. You can see this is the IP address, and this is the DNS name. So you can see how it's now getting all the data coming from FileBit, even the AMI that the EC2 instance was created with. Like, it's just getting all the data. So you can see it's coming from syslog and the message. So the message. So one thing that you should be aware of is all the columns. Okay, let me go back and minimize this. You can see all the columns are here. Okay, what you could do is you can search here. If you're interested in the message, you can just say message here, and then hit the plus button and add it, so that you can just have the view. So that even if you expand it, the message is right here down below. But if you want to quickly have a look here, you can see the message. So imagine if, let's say, you want to search for error. Okay, it's going to tell us. You can see quickly it has picked up the error, and you have the message right here where the error is coming from. And if you had thousands of servers that you've configured to ship logs to Elasticsearch, you just come here, you search for error. In the last 15 minutes, it shows you where error is coming from. Okay, and let's just say hours. Hasn't been running for hours, but anyway, you can see here. So all the errors, is kind of. So what we're going to do is we'll continue shipping data. So this is going to continue simulating data. Let's do the same for our Apache, so that we can configure file bit for Apache and get all that logs also going. All right. So let's say So this is Apache. We want to configure FileBits for Apache. Yeah. So we've installed FileBits and Elasticsearch. What we need to do is to enable the same thing we've done before. We just need to enable. And by the way, have we configured FileBits? Okay, looks like we've configured FileBits, right? Okay, so and then let's enable that. Already enabled, I believe, yeah. And that should start shipping Apache data. Okay, so that's also going through. So now we'll just leave that going as we will go into Prometheus and Grafana now. So, but we'll leave this going on for now so that we can see. One more thing, actually, because as part of observability is dashboards. So you need to have dashboards that shows, quickly show you data analyzed. Yeah. So we don't have any dashboard, but FileBit has a functionality where it can help us create dashboards. Okay, and that has to be done on the Kibana host or where Elasticsearch is installed. Let me see. I don't know if I have that. Did I put that information here? Okay, no. One second, I should have it somewhere. Let me quickly find that. One second. Okay. Okay, I think I found it. All right, so this has to be here. Okay, so setup. Local host. Host. Okay, let's try this. So let's run that on the Elastic. Right. We need to install FileBits on the Elasticsearch as well. Okay, so let's do that. So let me just move this to the FileBit notes. Oh, okay. Actually, it's there. I was wondering. Should have been there. Okay. So this needs to be, yeah. So let's install FileBits. We just need to install FileBits. Yeah, where Elasticsearch is running. And then we run this. So basically this will load dashboards in Kibana. It takes a bit of time. And it has to be run where Elasticsearch and Kibana is running. Okay, so let's run this. So loading dashboards, Kibana must be running and reachable. And if we refresh, you can see it will start creating different dashboards. Okay. So to help us configure it, it has picked up that this is running in AWS. So even data from VPC flow log, it will start loading everything in here. Okay. And one interesting thing as well is it will figure out that we have Nginx data coming through. And you can see here, people who are reaching our Nginx, we can immediately see, if let me send the IP address of this Nginx. So you guys, if you are from anywhere in the world, start hitting this. Okay, let's pick up the IP address. 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn off my camera. Someone's trying to get my attention. Hold on, please. Okay, guys, please bear me just 2 minutes. I just need to quickly go take pictures. Like I said before, today is my daughter's birthday. So I apologize. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. Apologies. I'm back. Let me put on right there. Okay. So. All right. So we have the dashboards configured. Yeah, I was going to send the IP address. So you guys can actually, I think what we should do. Okay. Okay, let's do it this way. I'm going to send this to you. You can start running this shell script. Okay. So that we can generate a lot of data. Let's disturb our Nginx. So what I would do is put in the Nginx IP address and replace it with localhost. Okay. So this is for This is for Nginx. So any one of you guys can just pick that and disturb the Nginx server. And then let's do the same for the Apache server. Apache. Okay. So that's for Apache. So, okay. So you guys can just go ahead and stop server. So we can then come back here and begin to say, I can see some people have started hitting our servers from somewhere in America. We can just keep on refreshing. It will pick up Apache as well. So access and error logs for Apache. So you can see we have data, there's 404, 200, 44, 44, 200. You can see how things are distributed. What's going on here? How many times? So what's the legend saying? Oh, okay. So green is 200 and this is for 400. So how many times we have 400? What is this pink? 3, 4. All right. Okay. See. So how many times we have 400, 4, 8, 200, 4, 4. So you can see how your systems are doing. So if you have a lot of 404, for example, that means we have an application that people are trying to hit an endpoint that doesn't exist. And as you can see, it's a problem, right? So we know what path it is. So someone is hitting the /admin and it looks like it doesn't exist, okay? And then we can do something about it. So our customers don't have bad experience. So this is part of what observability is all about. You can see invalid URL path, things that people are trying to access. And the same data is coming from, where is it? Let's go back to Discover. So we're getting more and more data coming through. If I change this to, let's say, in the last 1 hour, you can see things will start picking up and increasing as you guys begin to hit these servers. Yeah. And if you are interested in something else, maybe you want to quickly see the host name. You can see the different host name here where this data is coming from. Okay, so the host name is picking the DNS name. If you are interested in the host IP, there we go. So this is the IPv4, IPv6. All right, and you can filter by date and time, and this is going to be majority of what you'll be doing. Now, the other part of observability will be alerting. Okay, so we can configure something that is called watchers. So they have a functionality. If you go to stack management, all right, there's something called, where is it? Stack management. Okay, again, there's something called snapshot and restore. So these are some of the use cases of different things that you might want to go to the documentation and explore. How to take snapshot, which is pretty much backup of Elasticsearch. How to restore. In the case of disaster, you want to restore from a snapshot. How do you do that? There's detailed documentation on their website on how to do these things, and they're very, very, very easy to do. I was looking for watchers. Well, watchers are just ways you can implement alerting in Elasticsearch or Kibana, So for example, if you want to be alerted when there is too many 5xx errors, you can create what is called a watcher and then configure where to send the alerts to, maybe email, Slack, or wherever. I think it's Stack monitoring. Instead of monitoring with, but okay. So here's another thing. The same way we've implemented FileBit, you can also implement MetricBit, which is the alternative to Prometheus Grafana. From the look of things, I don't think we're going to be able to touch Grafana and Prometheus today, unfortunately, because we spent more than 2 hours already. But what I would recommend we do is to do that during the week before next week Friday, maybe Monday or Tuesday. I won't be available this weekend, but if you guys are happy, we can actually do it maybe Monday or Tuesday. But we'll agree at the end of today's call. Okay. Metric bit. I'll see if we can implement metric bit, but basically this is just another thing. So you can see how pluggable Elk stack is. You can configure things. I'm actually looking for this. Okay, let me see if I can search. Okay. Right, okay, I know the reason. So Elasticsearch is very expensive. There are certain functionalities that is only available when you pay for license. I think Watchers is one of them. But if you don't have access to Watchers, you can use other alerting. So there are other alerting systems, alerts and insights. So you can create alerts in Kibana, straight from Kibana. So you can configure rules. Okay, so for example, you can do what is called connectors. So you may want to connect things like Kafka or other systems, and then create rules to say, okay, if the threshold reaches certain, let's say, for example, you want to say if we have more than 100 count of errors, send a notification. So based on these rules, then you can configure alerts. I don't know where this alerts is. Let's see again, alerts and insights rules, overview alerts. Okay, yeah, so there we go. So you can create alerts. It tells you alerts that are acknowledged, that are closed. This is all part of observability. Okay, and again, Elastic documentation. If you want to spend the next 2 weeks exploring this, please do so. You will, you won't be what's it called? You won't be disappointed. If you want to try out the enterprise features, you can actually do a free trial, and they'll give you a license key, and then you can apply that license key, and it will open up all the features for a limited period of time. Okay. Now, these are some of the kind of documentation you want to read. Plan for production. So let's say you've explored these, you want to go through as much information as possible here. I mean, these are things that it's just not possible for us to implement on calls like this. But with this basic knowledge that you have, you can then go ahead and explore documentation and really go deep into how Elasticsearch and monitoring and this sort of things work. So deploying it for high availability, implementing security with, let's say you want to integrate Active Directory with it, with single sign-on, so that's with your corporate email, you can just sign into Kibana and other systems that you implement. Okay, let me see other things. Elasticsearch service, the best practices. Okay, these are best practices related documentation. Just explore. Okay, all right. So let's go back to our system. Yeah, let's see. So we still have data flowing through. Let's see what's flown through in the last 30 minutes. What's going on? Discover. It looks like there's something wrong. Discover player doesn't recognize this root. Okay, let's see what's going on in CloudWatch. So okay, so we can see here in CloudWatch we have things going on. So CPU has spiked up very well. Okay, you can see network information as well. Okay, let's see what's going on with Nginx. This has spiked up as well. Apache. monitoring. Okay, Apache has come down. So what happened is that still running? Okay. So it's, oh, okay, we didn't actually run this script. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, and then you can see, things will start picking up for that. Okay, and for CloudWatch, let's quickly touch on CloudWatch for a bit. So CloudWatch has a concept of log groups. Okay, so if we create a log group here, we could just say, let's just give it test, for example. Okay. And then we can say, okay, where do we want our data to be coming from? Okay, this is custom log data. Let's assume this, the same way that we have FileBits configured to ship logs to Elasticsearch, there are applications that you can also install on your servers that basically ship logs to CloudWatch. So the same thing that Elasticsearch is able to do, if you don't use Elasticsearch, you can actually use CloudWatch for the same as well. So CloudWatch is also quite expensive. As your data grows, Amazon charges you for money, charges money. So if you had that installed, you can actually configure it and then create what is called log groups, similar to what we have as index patterns in Elasticsearch. So once you have that configured, what will happen is you come to your log group here, and then you can filter the same way you can, filter like this. What is our Elasticsearch again? The same way you would filter like this and put time and everything. It's pretty much the same thing. Maybe by the next time we come together, I'll create a use case for that CloudWatch, and you can basically compare. Okay, but they basically do pretty much the same thing. But on top of just logs, let's go back to log CloudWatch. On top of logs, you can also have metrics. Okay, so if you go to all metrics, okay, you can see the different metrics that you have, for your EC2, EBS volume. Let's see, we have some logs, log data here. Okay. One nice thing is it has a way you can run queries. If you want to run query against your EC2, you can select metric, let's say metric name, count, number of packets, CPU credit, CPU utilization, for example. Let's run a query. You can see how you can compare data. So what's the legend saying? So the orange there, you can see the instance ID, which is for monitoring elk upgraded instance. You can see what the CPU utilization is saying. All right. So the blue line is basically like the baseline based on this query. And if you want to benchmark it against something, you can just put that and then see how you can, track your data. So this is all around monitoring, observability, and that's it. So the last part would be to configure Prometheus, Grafana, and then alerting connected to things like email, Slack, and whatnot. And if maybe a threshold is being reached, you get an alert, and then you go into the system, you have a look at it, and that's it really. Any questions? This is where we're going to enter this class. Any questions, guys? I hope this has been informative. Yeah.
I have a question. Good evening. Thanks so much for the class. My question is regarding this ELK, the Kibana. Is it possible to have load balancer just like we do in other servers, or it just has to be only that particular server which will configure it? I mean, considering about when one of the monitoring servers goes down, the other one can spin up and all. Can we still have such in place for Kibana?
I don't think I understand the question. I was trying to pay attention, but I didn't quite catch it.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it very clear now?
I can hear you. I just didn't understand the way you asked the question. If you can maybe re-articulate it.
Okay. Okay, so talking about the other projects we've done, where we have to set up like 2 different servers on different availability zones, so that when the auto scaling, when one goes down, the other one can spin up. So I'm asking if same thing can happen with this ELK configuration, especially about the Kibana, regarding the Kibana, where we have to do the actual monitoring, the observability, and everything. And that actually happened.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. So what you're trying to say is basically high availability for Kibana, whereby if you can have it in different availability zones and have a load balancer that connects to it, yes, you can implement such a thing. And like I said before, this is where you get documentation. Actually, let's see if we can find something. So implement HA for Kibana. Okay, so Kibana high availability. So basically everything will be working with the kibana.yaml file. So you have to make it aware that you're implementing high availability, so that if your load balancer pointed to any of the Kibana instances, it knows that it's running in like a HA mode. Okay, this is actually a discussion user in production. Okay, this is okay. So load balancing across multiple Kibana instances. So basically, you have to work with the Kibana configuration file to make it aware of that. Okay, so these kind of things, any use case you think about at all, the documentation is that you can just search for it, read up on it, see how it's done. So it's not going to be straightforward the way you would normally just put a load balancer, configure different Kibana, and then think it will point to it. You're dealing with data here, and you want data integrity, and so Kibana itself has to be aware that that is what you're configuring it, as. That makes sense. Okay, so I'll just send that link here. Yeah. Okay. Someone else is asking a question.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the amazing class.
Welcome.
Sorry, I'm taking you back. I couldn't join in time because of a network issue on my side. Yes. I know you must have explained what I'm about to ask, but I just want to hear from you. My question is based on requirements of the system, because last time I had serious issues, my system freezing and hanging. So I know you must have cleared it up at the beginning. If you can help me on the beginning side.
Yeah, well, especially for Grafana, sorry, not Grafana, Elasticsearch and Kibana, you just want to make sure you give it enough RAM. Initially, we started off with 8 gig of RAM, although I don't think it's related. At first, we thought that it was related. We used T2 large, I think, but we had to change that to T2X large or something like that, which has 16 gig of RAM. But you just want to make sure it has enough RAM and CPU to cope with the system.
Okay, thank you so much.
And always remember to stop your instances because these things can be expensive. Yeah. Any more questions? All right, cool.
Sorry, that's the time when we tried to install Kibana when it was showing Kibana server not ready yet.
Yeah.
You only just had to restart
Elasticsearch,
right?
yes.
I did try that several times. It's not working, but I'll look at it again though. Just want to.
Okay, so you're facing the same problem, right?
Yes. I've just
The
been
only
following
thing
the class.
You started
The only
before
thing
and
we did was we start. Yeah. The only thing
Before
we
and
did
after.
was we start Elasticsearch. Okay.
All right.
What else? I was gonna say something I forgot about. Oh, yeah.
The next class, so Monday or Tuesday.
Yes. So the next class where we will cover Grafana and Prometheus. I thought we'll be able to cover it in this class, but I think it'll be too much if we add that on top of today's class. And I would have said maybe tomorrow, Sunday, but I won't be available. So do you guys, shall we say Tuesday evening, let's say 8 p.m. will be ideal. Actually, 1 second. Let me just have a quick look at my calendar. Okay, so next week. Okay, so I don't have anything for 8 p.m. So shall we say 8 p.m. on Tuesday?
Yes, Gary.
All right, cool.
Yes, it's okay by me.
All right, brilliant. So Chinwe will help us to set up a meeting for Tuesday, and then we can cover that part so that we'll then give you guys time to go ahead and explore a lot more on this particularly. Try to go through the documentation, practice different use cases. And by the way, let me share the sheet where the homework is also written. I'll share that in Slack. There is some homework there for you guys to do. Chinwe would also share that in email as usual. And then there are a number of quizzes that you have to do as well. This is all in a bit to just help you solidify your knowledge around these things so that you can freely and confidently talk about these things when you go for interviews. So
yeah, thank you, Larry. The quiz really helped me understand all what you taught us tonight.
Oh, brilliant! That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Prepare me for today's class.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks for that feedback. All right. If you guys have not given us any review on Trustpilot, Google, Facebook, whatever, please help our business, help our startup. Okay. And, share your feedback and talk about us on LinkedIn everywhere. Okay. A lot more people need to know about what we're doing here and we're trying to make a difference. All right. Cool. I wish you great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Okay. If you have any questions, don't forget, reach out on Slack. We'll be happy to help. Okay. If you have any more questions, you can drop them in Slack. Okay. I'll be happy to respond in chat. Okay. And our support engineers also will be happy to do that. Okay. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye.
Bye. Happy birthday to the girl.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Larry.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, happy birthday to you.
Yeah. All right, Derry. Happy birthday to your daughter. Have a nice weekend.
Thank
Take care. Thank you.
you.